to Fluency.com and welcome to this English lesson where we're going to talk about conditionals in English. So we're going to go through the various conditionals in English. I'm going to give you lots of examples. And if you follow this lesson until the end, I'm sure you're going to have a much better understanding of how to use the zero, first, second, third, and mixed conditionals in English. Now, the examples we're going to talk about all relate to a wedding. And I've got some pictures to show you too, so that you can understand the context. But before we get into the lesson, welcome to you. If you are new here, then please subscribe and turn on that notification bell. In fact, I'm going to share some things with you. Firstly, smash that like button or simply click it. I don't want you to break your phone. And then consider clicking the join button to become a member. Now, becoming a member here on YouTube gives you various perks and different things, and you can read about them when you click that join button. There's also a link in the live chat. And then after this lesson, be sure to watch more lessons after this one. We have various conversations with myself and my wife where we talk about different topics in English with subtitles. And normally I leave all the phrases that we use in the description so that you can learn some really cool everyday English phrases. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk about conditionals today. Conditionals in English. And I've got so many examples for you. We've got a lot to go through. But first, I'll just say hi in the chat. So we've got Nalina who is here, Ricardo, Jan, Arturo, Mberek, Lightwarp, Lewis, people from Gabon, very cool, Rio, Jordan, Lolly from France, who is a member and joins us every week. It's great to have you back, Lolly. Let's get straight into it today. We're not going to waste too much time. Let's go to the lesson. And are we ready? So look at this picture. Here is a picture of a typical wedding in the US and the UK. I think this is probably from the US. It's difficult to tell. But weddings generally in the UK and America are quite similar. They are quite similar. I think maybe the biggest difference is in the US, when you go to a wedding, you have something called a free bar where all the drinks are free. So you go to the bar, you get a drink, it's all included as part of the wedding experience. But in the UK, that is normally not the case. You usually get a glass of wine or a few bottles of wine on the table at dinner, but then after that, you're on your own. You have to go get and buy your own drinks. But generally speaking, weddings in the US and the UK are very, very similar. Okay, so bear that in mind. Think about that as we go through this. So here's a picture of a wedding. Now, normally, someone might say, I hate wearing suits. I hate wearing suits. So a suit, as you can see from the picture, is this type of clothing, the very formal clothing that you wear if you are normally a businessman. So this is a guy, a male. And I actually made a lesson yesterday on suit versus fit, talking about the verbs here. And you can go watch that on Instagram or on Twitter. So if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, just look to Fluency on those two channels. Okay, so first one, I hate wearing suits. So that's what someone might say. You know, normally I hate wearing suits. I don't like to wear them. But I wear a suit when I go to weddings. So look at this sentence. I wear a suit when I go to weddings. I wear a suit when I go to weddings. This is the zero conditional. And the zero conditional is used when we're talking about what we normally do in certain situations. Okay? What we normally do in certain situations. So I wear a suit when I go to weddings. When I come to the office, I wear casual clothes. So I'm in my office right now. When I go to my office, I wear casual clothes. But when I go to the gym, I wear athletic clothes. Normally. Not always. Sometimes. So that sentence is important. I wear a suit when I go to weddings. Next one. Okay. Ice cream melts if you leave it outside. Ice cream melts if you leave it outside. So you can see a picture here of ice cream and then the sun, and ice cream melts when you leave it outside. This is, again, the zero conditional. So we use the zero conditional for facts, especially when it comes to science. So when it comes to science, we use, and that was a zero conditional. When it comes to science, we use zero conditionals. Zero conditionals are quite popular in everyday speech. Okay. Now here's one that's more specific. I always take wine when I go to dinner parties. I always take wine when I go to dinner parties. Now here's something that's funny. So when I was in Valencia, when my wife and I were in Valencia, we met a friend who used to work for a wine company, and she gave us a little trick to say, when you get a bottle of wine, okay, there's a little hole at the bottom. The deeper the hole, the better the wine. So ever since then, which was 9 years ago, 10 years ago maybe, we have gone to the supermarket, the grocery store, and when we buy wine, this is a zero conditional, when we buy wine, we always check to see how deep that hole is. It's a little bit strange when you're in a store and you're just putting your finger into the wine bottle, but it works. Maybe it's a placebo, but I think every time we do it, we get a great bottle of wine. So try that next time. But generally speaking, yes, I always take wine when I go to dinner parties. Now, can you leave more examples of the zero conditional in the chat box? So if you're watching live, leave it in the live chat. If you're watching the replay, leave it in the comment section. Some more examples of the zero conditional. Now, a lot of people are saying, or Ankit is saying, is there anyone who wants to practice English speaking with me? Try and save those kind of things until the end of the lesson. It's good that when we're doing these lessons, we focus on the subject that we are talking about. Okay. And if you haven't done so yet, click like on this stream, on this lesson. So just click that like button. So there is no if clause in zero conditionals. No, we can use the if clause too. You know, if it rains, I tend to stay inside. You know, it doesn't rain a lot in summer, but if it does rain, we stay inside, for example. I always write comments when I watch live streams. Perfect. When you heat the cold, it will melt. Yeah, or when you heat ice, it melts. If I watch your lesson, I learn how to make conditional sentences. Yeah, or when I watch your lessons on the conditionals, I learn how to make conditional sentences. Water evaporates when it boils. Good. Okay, so those are some good examples of conditional sentences. Let's move on now to the first conditional. So we've done the zero. We're now going to learn about the first. And the way I like to talk about the first conditional is to talk about real situations in the future. Real situations in the future. Not hypothetical, but real. But again, we're going to talk about the wedding. Now, this wedding that these people are going to have is outside. And I'll say, when people plan their wedding, there's a lot of stress and anxiety. They think about all the things they have to do to make it a good wedding. Who to invite, where to have the wedding, what food, what to wear, etc. lots of different things to think about, and lots of small things like what to put on the tables, flower arrangements, gifts, honeymoons. There is a lot to think about. Now, in the US, a lot of people, this is another difference. In the US, people like to have their wedding outside. I have been to a lot of weddings here in the US outside. So they like to have their wedding outside. But there's a problem, isn't there? Because let's say that you have a wedding outside. Someone is going to say, okay, good idea, but what will we do if it rains? I'm going to put this in the chat. What will we do if it rains? Now, this is a first conditional sentence using the interrogative or the question. What will we do if it rains? Somebody always asks that question. Now, with these sentences, we use a mixture of the will and the present simple. What will we do if it rains? Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the grammar here, because when you learn lots of sentences, you'll understand the grammar. But this is what they'll say. We'll have to go inside if it rains. We'll all have to go inside if it rains. So that is the answer to the question, what will we do if it rains? Now, some people are saying, or Ladan is saying, I'll take an umbrella if it rains. If it rains, we'll go inside. Go back home, we'll go inside. Yeah. So most weddings, again, what they have is some type of tent or marquee. So the ceremony is outside, but usually when people have dinner, the reception, this might be inside or underneath a tent. So there is a backup plan if it rains. So that's a great example. Next one. Let's say that we have to invite our sister, but she might not be able to make it. And you think, what will we do if she can't make it? Well, if your sister can't make it, we'll have to go ahead with it. If your sister can't make it, we'll have to go ahead with it. And there's a sentence. If your sister can't make it, we'll have to go ahead with it. So to go ahead means to continue with it. Okay? To go ahead means to continue with it. So if your sister doesn't come, then we'll have to go ahead with it. If your sister can't make it, we'll have to go ahead with it. Does that make sense? That's another example of the first conditional, like a real situation in the future. Now, you don't know what is going to happen, but you're talking about something that might happen. Now, when it comes to weddings as well, a big thing is food. And let's say that for our wedding, we have ordered a big dinner from a local restaurant. But they call you and they say, we've got a problem. We've got a problem. They're on the phone. They say, we've got a problem. Our kitchen is not working right now. We don't know if we will be able to bring all that food for your wedding. So you're panicked. You're thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Hopefully, they'll be able to bring the food to the wedding. But if they don't come on time, call that barbecue place and put in a huge order. If they don't come on time, call that barbecue place and put in a huge order. So again, we're talking about not a hypothetical, a real situation in the future. It might happen, it might not happen. But what's important is that you have this plan. If they don't come on time, if they can't bring us the food on time, call that barbecue place and put in a huge order. Raphael says, this is real life? Yes, it is. Welcome to the lesson. And to you as well, Belady. Good. Okay, so if they don't come on time, call that barbecue place and put in a huge order. So now it's time to leave more first conditional examples in the chat. And some people have done this already. For example, Lolly Lolly says, if it rains, I'll listen to English Jack's podcast. It's a great way to do that, isn't it? If I study hard, I will pass my English exams. Yeah, that's a great one. So this is where you have an exam in the future, and if I study hard, I'll pass. If I don't study hard, I'll fail. If I study hard, I'll pass. If I don't study hard, I'll fail. So yeah, that's a really good example. Baladi says, I swear it's raining now. Well, we have such a gorgeous day here. It was cold this morning, but it's going to get to, let's see, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, say, 19 degrees Celsius. Now, if it's warm tomorrow, we'll go on a hike, or we're going to go on a hike. Now, yeah, that's one thing as well. You can use will or going to. I'd say maybe will is a little bit more common, especially in examples people give, but you can use will or going to with the first conditional. Okay. If my husband leaves with my daughter for a walk, I'll have free time. Yeah, I can say here, if my husband takes my daughter for a walk, I'll have free time. If I listen to you, I'll figure out the conditional. Yeah, good. If you don't take your medicine, you won't get better. Perfect example. Yeah. Parents use this all the time with children. If you don't eat dinner, you can't watch TV. If you don't eat your dinner, you won't be able to have dessert. If I go to bed late, I'll not get up early in the morning. Yeah. Yeah. If I don't sleep well tonight, I'll have a nap in the afternoon tomorrow. Okay, so we've done the zero and the first. Let's move on to the second conditional. This is probably everyone's favorite conditional because you can talk about hypothetical situations. And we use this when we're talking about hypothetical situations. Things that aren't true, aren't real. And Suraj says, if I had more money, I would buy a Lamborghini. Yeah, good example of the second conditional. Now, when it comes to weddings, it's all about money. It's all about your budget. So the budget is the total money you have to spend on the wedding. So let's look at some examples now. We'd get that band if we had the budget. So we love that band, but that band is expensive. We don't have the money for the band, but we would get that band if we had the budget. We don't have the money, but we would get that band if we had the budget. And again, budget is the amount of money you have to spend on something specifically. So people have a grocery budget or a vacation budget, the amount of money you're going to spend on a vacation this year. Now, we'd equals we would. That's one of the biggest contractions in English. We would is we'd. So we'd get that band if we had the budget. If we had more money, we'd have a destination wedding. If we had more money, we'd have a destination wedding. Now, a destination wedding is when you go to a different city, town, region, or country to have a wedding. So people in the UK, because the weather is not the best in the UK, they like to go to places like Italy or Spain or Greece to have a wedding. Now, this person is saying here, if we had more money, we'd have a destination wedding. Generally speaking, destination weddings are more expensive. Some great examples in the chat, I'll come to those soon. If we had time, we'd handwrite all the invites. If we have time, we'd handwrite all the invites. Okay, so this is a good example of if you had more time, we'd handwrite all the invites. Wedding invitations. Okay, wedding invitations. Let's see the examples in the chat. Some good examples here. If you're watching the replay, leave them in the comment section. I'd buy an island if I won $1 billion. If I had a lot of money, I would buy a huge house. Lolly lolly. If I join your class, my fluency would be better. That's a mixed conditional. We're going to talk about that soon. If I had money, I would buy a car. A lot of the time that it is about money. We would splash a lot on clothes if we did not have to buy food. We'd buy... not going to say that. I'd go to my school if the pandemic had not been there. Yeah. Or if the pandemic weren't here, you can say. You can use both in that case. If I had more time, I would learn Spanish. If I had more money, I would travel to the UK. If I had a lot of money, I would help a lot of homeless people. If the budget allowed, I would make a honeymoon in Thailand. If I'd studied harder, I would pass the exam. That's a third conditional. We'll come back to that. If there weren't lockdown, I would travel. Very good. Okay, so that's the second conditional. Let's now move on to the third conditional. Third conditional. Now, the third conditional is like a hypothetical situation in the past, talking about things in the past. And a few people have talked about this, okay? So here it is. If the babies hadn't kept me up all night, I would have been in a better mood. Now, this is a long sentence, okay? Now, let's say you were in a bad mood yesterday at the wedding, and the reason is you didn't sleep because the babies kept you up all night. You can say, if the babies hadn't kept me up all night, I would have been in a better mood. So this is quite a complex sentence. What we're talking about is if something in the past changed, then something else in the past changes. So it's a hypothetical situation because the babies did keep you up all night and you can't change that now. You can't change that anymore. So if the babies hadn't kept me up all night, I would have been in a better mood. So it's a really good example of this. Next one. And just know that at weddings, there's a lot of dancing. I would have beaten you in that dance-off if I hadn't hurt my knee. I would have beaten you in that dance-off if I hadn't hurt my knee. So let's say you had a dance-off, which is like a dance competition at a wedding with somebody, but you had a sore knee. So you can tell that person the next day, well, I would have beaten you if I hadn't hurt my knee. But because your knee was sore, you lost. And you can't change that anymore. I would have had dessert if I'd known about it. I would have had dessert if I had known about it. Now look at this sentence. We notice that we're using have or a variant of it 3 times here. So we're using have 3 times. I would have had dessert if I had known about it. I would have had dessert if I had known about it. So we're using the would have, but then the would have with the verb have. I would have had. I would have had. And then if I had known about it. So we're using have a lot here. Okay. So it's a really good example of this. Now, what I recommend you do is to write down these examples. If you need to go through the lesson again, do that. I highly recommend writing down the examples so that you can get repetition with them. Repetition is the key to everything. And then use something like Anki to put them into spaced repetition software so that you can get the repetition you need automatically. If you want to learn more about that, there is a featured video on my YouTube channel. So let's do some of the comments on this. If I hadn't paid attention, they would have robbed me. Yeah, good. If I'd gone to Australia, I would have seen the Opera House. There's a funny joke about the Opera House. I wish I could remember it. If I had driven, we would have arrived there on time. On time, yeah. If I kept my bottle filled, I would have drank it. I would have drunk it. If I worked hard, I would have passed the exam. Perfect. Yeah, this is a good example. If I'd worked hard, I would have passed that exam. I would have done well in my exams if I had studied well. And Ab Ishek says, outstanding, sir. Well, thank you very much. If you are enjoying this lesson, just again, we have 109 likes and 180 people watching live. So let's try and get that to 180 likes while we are doing this lesson. Just click the like button on your phone or on your computer. Lolly says, if I'd studied more, I would have passed my English exams. I would have had more time in the morning if I'd woken up earlier. I like that example, AB. Yeah, I would have had more time in the morning if I'd woken up earlier. It's a great example. A zero conditional example with this. Let's try and do an example using the 0, first, second, and third, all with the same topic. Okay, so let's just say I would have had more time in the morning if I had woken up earlier. Okay, so that's the third conditional. The second conditional would be I would have more time if I could wake up earlier. That's using could instead of had. I'll have more time tomorrow if I wake up earlier. And I have more time when I wake up earlier. So you can see how we can use the different conditionals. And that's a good exercise for you, is to take one sentence and then try to put it into different conditionals. It's a good writing practice. Okay. Oksana says, but all the third are mending the situation in the past only, right? That's right. That's right. But now we're going to learn about mixed conditionals, where we can talk about how the past affects the future, how the future affects the past, how the past affects the present. Okay. Before we do that, I'm just going to take a very quick break just to finish my water, and let's see if you enjoy this little song. Okay, so yeah, we have talked about the different conditionals, 0, first, second, and third. Now, in English as well, we use a lot of mixed conditionals. So conditionals that are talking about different time periods and mixing them together. So I've got some examples for you. Let me go over here. Mixed conditionals. And some people have used mixed conditionals in this lesson already without really knowing it, okay? Because we definitely use them in everyday speech and they're very common. So let's use another example, a very simple one where the past affects the present. And you can say, if the babies hadn't kept me up all night, I would be in a better mood now. If the babies hadn't kept me up all night, I would be in a better mood now. So that's showing how something in the past, change in the past, can change the present. There are so many good examples of this that you can think of. For example, if I hadn't met my wife, I wouldn't be in America now. because my wife is American, and that meant we could come to America together. So if I hadn't met my wife, I wouldn't be in America now. You can also say, I wouldn't be living in America now. If I hadn't met my wife, I wouldn't be living in America now. So can you leave some examples of this where the past affects the present? Julie says, is now necessary in the mixed conditional? It's not. I'm putting that in there to just to highlight that we're talking about, today, this moment. You can also just say, if the babies hadn't kept me up all night, I would be in a better mood. Because it's obvious we're talking about in this moment. If I had accepted that offer, I would be a CEO now. Yeah. Another example you can do is talk about investing. If I had invested in Tesla 3 years ago, I would be rich. If I had invested in Tesla 3 years ago, I would be rich. How something in the past affects something in the present. Okay, so that's how the past affects the present. Now, this next example it's meant to be a funny example. So it's not something that someone would say in a serious way. If you were giving us more money, we would be going on a longer honeymoon. Okay? If you're giving us more money, we would be going on a longer honeymoon. So again, something in the past affects, in this case, the future. So something in the past affecting the future. If you're giving us more money, we would be going on a longer honeymoon. So that's like saying, look, we can't go on a long honeymoon because you didn't give us enough money. You didn't give us enough presents in that sense, the gift of money. But if you had given us more money, we would be going on a longer honeymoon. So that's how the past affects the future. Now, this is how the present affects the past. If I were rich, we would have got that band. If I were rich, we would have got that band. This is similar to saying, if I had more money, we would get that band. But it's more or less just talking about it in a more present affecting the present. If I were rich, we would have got that band. Sorry, the past. If I were rich, we would have got that band. And then I'm going to leave this most advanced example to the end. Are you ready for it? If we weren't going to that wedding next month, we would have gone on vacation last week. This is how the future affects the past. The future affects the past. Because of your plan in the future, it affected your past. If we weren't going to that wedding next month, we would have gone on vacation last week. Because the wedding next month is expensive, you take time off work, you have to travel. And because of the wedding next month, you couldn't go on that vacation last week. So if we weren't going to that wedding next month, we would have gone on vacation last week. Have a little time to think about that example because it is a little bit complex with the if we weren't going. If we weren't going. Not aren't, but weren't. If we weren't going to the wedding next month, we would have gone on vacation last week. Can you leave more examples of this where the future conditional affects the past? So I'm going to leave that there for a second. Actually, I'll come back to me. Those are the different conditionals. Again, what I recommend you do is go through this lesson again and copy the examples down into a notebook or into Anki. Think about leaving more examples for yourself related to your everyday life. So this is an important exercise, a great writing exercise, where you take examples, but then you make more examples that are specific to you in your life. So if you have a vacation coming next week, you can talk about this. You can talk about, well, if I had more money, we would be going on a better vacation, for example. Or if we had more time, we would be going for longer. Think about vacations in the past. For example, you can say, oh, if we had more money back then, we would have gone on a longer vacation. Just try and think about different sentences that you can use in order to use the conditionals correctly. Okay, let's read some of these conditionals now. If I'd learnt English a few days ago, I would have more time to watch Netflix this evening, because on Sunday I have a test. Yeah, if I learnt English a few days ago, I would have more time to watch Netflix this evening. Great example. That's from AB. You've got some great examples today, AB. If I had worked harder, I would be in university now. If I hadn't met my husband, I would not be living in the UK. Great. If I were you, I wouldn't take that decision. If I hadn't gone to the market, I wouldn't have dinner. Yeah, great. If there wasn't a next month, we wouldn't understand the future looks like it. Oh yes, that's a question. Yeah, so we're using time expressions here just to tell people what we're talking about. If I knew Spanish, I could have communicated with her. I'm at work. If I were on my way home, I wouldn't have been listening to you now. Oh, these examples are so good. So good. And if you're watching the replay, click on the live chat to see these examples in real time. If you joined us, we would be going together. If I hadn't started studying English, I wouldn't get stressed about learning English idioms. If she had sent the email, we would be considering buying the island. If we weren't going to Australia, I would have gone to America. Great example. If I weren't studying myself, I would be taking tuitions or taking lessons. If I weren't going to buy a car, I would have invested in the house. Yeah, if I weren't going to buy a car, I would have invested in the house. Oh, great example. Slabadom. Great example. If we weren't going to that party, I would be studying for the exam. Yeah, very good. Very, very good. Okay. If I were more serious, I would be in a better situation. If I'd learned English ages ago, I wouldn't be made fun of. I'm sure that doesn't happen. Okay. Okay, if coronavirus hadn't broken out, my niece would have had a wedding. Yeah, that's happening a lot. A lot of people have cancelled weddings. Somebody we know cancelled a wedding because of the coronavirus too. They tried to do it in March and then they tried again in October, and it was impossible. All right, so those are some great examples. Thank you so much for the examples in the chat. Those are just really, really good. Now, if you're new here, then definitely get this. It's my book. It's my free gift for you. It's my 5-step plan for English fluency. There's a link that I've just left in the chat. There's also a link in the description. And also, while you're in the description, go to my website to check out the Fluency program. Go to the different links for the lessons that I have in there, because there's a lot of lessons there. And also consider joining the Fluency membership here on YouTube. You get a little button next to your name, and as more people join, I'm going to really just prioritize those who are members when it comes to the chat. So it's a way for you to support the channel. The more members I have, the more videos I'm going to make. And also you get access to videos early if you join the Fluency Plus. We've got a couple of people on that right now. We've got about 25 people in total as a member. I'm trying to get this up to 100 so then I can put more effort into the YouTube channel. It just helps me when it comes to making lessons and to pay for the subtitles as well. So if you want to support the channel, and then if you've enjoyed this, please like and share it. So click that like button and share it with your friends. And then again, yeah, watch more lessons after this one. Okay, I hope you have a wonderful weekend or day or evening or morning whenever you are watching this. Again, my name is Jack from tofluency.com. Subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell. Thank you.